Warning: the Not Real Art podcast is intended for creative audiences only. The Not Real Art podcast celebrates creativity and creative culture worldwide. It contains material that is fresh, fun, and inspiring and is not suitable for boring old art snobs. Now, let's get started and enjoy the show.
Greetings and salutations, my creative brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Not Real Art podcast, where we celebrate creative culture and the artists who make it. I'm your host, Sourdough, coming to you from Crew West Studio in Los Angeles. Man, do we have a cool program for you all today. I have no doubt you will learn, grow, and be inspired by today's show. Before we get into our main event, I want to thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to like this episode and subscribe. Your likes and follows help ensure you won't miss any of our new shows, and it makes the algorithm gods happy, which helps us. So thanks for that. Also, be sure to visit our website, notrealart.com. Sign up for our newsletter to keep your finger on the pulse of everything we're doing here at Not Real Art for artists and art lovers. A lot of great stuff there. On the website, you'll get free educational videos. You can sign up for our artist grant for the chance to receive $2,000. You can buy affordable original and contemporary art through our partnership with Sugar Press. And you can become a supporter through Patreon if you want. So be sure to check out our website today for all the good, healthy stuff we got for you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got a live one for you today. In the house, the one and only Toons. Toons One, international artist, style writer, custom painter, fineline pinstriper, original graffiti artist since 1982 right here in LA. Love this conversation with Toons. Toons is so smart. So generous with his time. We go long and deep with this one. Love hearing from this guy. I'm so grateful that he was able to take time out of his busy schedule. We recorded late one night recently. So without further ado, let's get into this and hear from the one and only Toons. Toons One, welcome to the Not Real Art podcast.
Yes, sir. In the house, in the flesh.
We did it. We're here.
We're here. We're here.
Man, you know, the world sometimes conspires against us to make things difficult as this logging in of the tech, tried to thwart us tonight. But we fought, we battled, and we triumphed.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. I just feel like sometimes it's just all it is just it's man-made stuff. So definitely there's going to be errors, and that should be expected. You know.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, to do what you do, you've got to have obviously a steady hand, a steady mind, a steady soul, so I have no doubt that you were looking at this going, yeah, like this ain't no thing.
Well, actually, no, I don't feel that way. I feel actually it's a privilege and an honor to be on a platform to speak on what is something that is very close and dear to me. Has been a major part of my life. So to have any opportunity, whether it's an established news, traditional or mainstream news media outlet, or even a guy off the street just wants to interview me, it's all important to me. I think it's all important. It all has meaning because you never know where they will end up in, you know?
Right.
So,
and that's a beautiful attitude. And I mean, the thing about, one of the reasons why we do this podcast is because I think of the 16-year-old kid in the Midwest, for example, where I'm from, who's hungry for information. Maybe they can't afford to go to art school. Maybe they don't know an artist. Maybe they don't know what's up, or maybe they're just hungry and maybe they're the only artist in their town, or maybe, who knows what the situation is. And a podcast is free, and to provide access to accomplished, professional, talented geniuses like you for those kids, kids out in the Midwest, out, somewhere. I mean, they're hungry, so I feel like this is one way of feeding them. And so having you on board and having other artists that come and talk and share for me is just an honor because, I feel like, what we do here is important, if for no other reason that we're just trying to help inspire and inform and educate people who are hungry.
Exactly. And just, carrying on our tradition. That's our traditional oral tradition that goes back before recorded history. So definitely.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So who lifted you up over the years? I mean, when you coming up, I mean, obviously, you were inspired and by people, and, whether it be an uncle or a friend or a teacher or something, like who were those mentors and inspirational people in your life that helped lift you up along the way?
Well, first I have to give it up definitely to my mother. She was the one who inspired me to be creative and to explore my creative self. So when I was very, very young, I was born here in California. Also, my sister, my older sister, and my younger sister were born here in California. Or no, my older sister, I'm sorry. Older sister was born in Midwest in Missouri, and same with my older brother. And when my mother decided to venture out and come to Cali, she brought me because I was the youngest one, and she just wanted to come out here, set up shop. And then she sent for, she went back and picked up my older brother and sister. So a lot of time, that we spent together, we spent in a very small apartment, and, we didn't have much. So my mother just created a lot of artwork. She was into drawing and things like that. And so she used to do these large scale drawings on the walls of our apartment. And she used to read me bedtime stories. And like one of the few bedtime story books that she had was both my favorite and her favorite was Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, yeah.
And so, so the one picture where all the monsters and everything are hanging from the trees, she replicated that on the wall in our bedroom and in full color. And It was just amazing. Like we'd be out all day. She'd be out doing her thing, going to school and studying. She worked in the medical field. And so then I was going to babysitter and then preschool. But we had come back to the apartment, and then at night, before I go to bed, she'd be sitting there sketching and work on this piece. So I'd just be sitting there watching her for hours do this work. So, naturally later on, she taught me and my older brother, really, we took on the art thing. And then when we learned that, she actually stopped. So she passed it on to us, and then she went deeper into the medical field. And so I just kind of, we took the baton and ran with it. And so then later on, when I came into style writing was through actually before hip hop really, as we know it, jumped off in the West Coast. We had I was into popping and break, and not popping and breaking, but pop locking and locking.
Yeah.
And so later on when breakdancing came, I was, there was a guy from New York who was in one of our groups that we hung out with. And he actually would come to my house and we'd all be practicing together. He came to the pad one day to pick me up, and I was working on some drawings. And he was like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know you was down with art, And so basically he said, "Let me show you the stuff that we used to do back in New York." And so then, this was before B Street and all of this, everything came out. It was like 70, no, I would say not 79. This was 80, 80. And so he showed me trains and stuff like that and New York graffiti. Yeah. And so it just blew my mind. And I was like, what? And then he was telling me the whole story on it. And I was hooked. I was hooked. And so, from then on, I just dude, you got to show me how to do this, because I saw gang graffiti naturally. I was in a gang neighborhood. So, I knew that, but I didn't know style
this
writing
was art.
in that form.
Right.
Yeah. This was, to some extent, some of the gang writing was cool too.
Exactly.
They had their people that was doing some stuff that was awesome too. So, but anyways.
So what was his name?
Oh man, I forgot homeboy's name. Oh man, I even forgot his dancing name. But it's funny because my old dancing name was Wiz Rock. And it's funny. There's a kid that I talked to, and he writes Riz Rock. So
Okay.
it was funny because I told him I used to write that a long time ago. So it was cool to see somebody else doing it. And actually, he taught me some cool letters with it. And we used to do pieces on our Converse. So
Right.
like when you'd be dancing, you'd have your style hooked up, and then, you had your shoes hooked up. So, but later on, I think more influences came as far as like growing up in Southern California. Definitely, I would have to say, because I was in the hotbed of like the gang neighborhoods, also the
Where
car
exactly
culture.
were you? Where exactly were you?
At that time when hip hop first came around, I was in East Side Torrance,
Okay.
actually
Yeah.
224th and Western.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a park down the street from our house called Normandale. And
Mm-hmm.
this was like Booyah Tribe lived around the way from us. So they used to always come up to the park, and everybody would go there and practice. So we had poppers, breakers, people like that going up there and doing their thing. And so, and then we moved up to Sacramento like in 84. I moved up. So right when graffiti and everything was taken off in LA, we moved up to Northern Cal. And so I hooked up with some guys up there. There was some guys at the high school that I went to, and there was a group called Pro Vandals. So it was a trip because they had a whole different way they did hip hop up there, and they were tough with it too. So it was like the dancing and everything like that was a little bit different. You had guys that were dressing up like Prince, but they were heavy into popping. And then I was discovering like some of the origins, because I thought popping started in LA, but it started in Northern Cal. So like San Jose, Fresno, places like that. Fresno was actually the spot where it started. And so just coming into contact with those original styles like strutting and hitting and stuff like that, those forms, it blew my mind. And I was going back and forth to LA and telling my people down in South about the whole scene down in up in Northern Cal. And so as time went by, like around I would have to say, getting closer to the late 80s, hip hop really started dying out, like in Sacramento. So I just kept going. I was like all the other guys that I was writing with, there was only one dude from my high school, and we kept it up. And we were like the only guys in that whole city really that were painting. So then we would like take little trips and go to San Francisco, because San Francisco was cracking. Yeah. So we used to go out there, and I hooked up with a crew called TWS, called Together with Style. And I hooked up with the main guy in their crew named Crayon. And he took me under his wing basically and started schooling me on stuff. And like, that was my thing. Once I started getting hooked up with them, I basically wanted to learn from like the best. And at that time, when there was the book Subway Art had came out, and Spray Can Art had came out. And little did I know that one of the co-authors of Spray Can Art actually lived in Sacramento, which is Jim Prigoff. And I later hooked up with him, and he was kind of instrumental in some way, like a little influence in how, when I went to Europe and hooked up with a lot of guys, because I actually was helping him identify photos and stuff like that. He would get photos and slides from stuff that he would take pictures around the world. And so he couldn't read some of the stuff. So I was doing some of that. He paid me for doing that. I got to see all these great photos and correspondence from writers around the world. And then later on, I ended up going and painting at those spots that I was actually seeing. So it was real cool. It was a nice little serendipity to kind of come to that full circle.
Totally, man. Totally. So do you remember your first tag, your first throw up? Like what was this, like, exactly what's the circumstance?
I do. That was when I was living in East Side Torrance. And it was like the border, like 224th and Western is right near, like, you have the nice part of Torrance. Like, we lived in actually downtown Torrance for a little bit, and that's actually a nice part of Torrance. But then the bad part of Torrance was where we lived in Eastside Torrance. It's right there between Western and Normandy. And so you're right there kind of by Carson, right on the borders of Carson, and then Harbor City. So that area, when the apartment building I lived in, actually, that was the first place I did my first tag. and my first kind of throw up and weird looking piece. He was teaching me some different stuff. And then also at his apartment building, he lived like on the next street over. And so I went over to his place and we were painting on the back of his apartment building too. He was just showing me the fundamentals.
So, these days, right, you hear people talking about, 10,000 hours, it's like it takes 10,000 hours to be an expert or whatever. Right. So I mean, at what moment did you feel like, okay, I got this, was it 10,000 hours? Like at what point do you feel like you started getting that swagger?
I would say that was probably about 1990.
Mm-hmm.
I would say about 1990.
Yeah.
But then I got to a certain level, but then it was like when I really started getting like really going off was probably like around 95.
Okay.
So I would say about 95 was really when it took off. And at that time I was living on Melrose and we had the Top Inland show with ICU, Stosh Molesky. He's the one who put that on.
Oh, yeah.
And
shout out Stosh.
Yeah. And it was actually pretty cool. That was a dope show. That was a real pivotal show because it really taught me the basics for how I started doing group shows later on. Just seeing the whole model of like us creating our own show. Like, because, I had tried to go to some galleries to actually, I had approached them about doing shows with them and they weren't trying to hear it. And I told them, I said, yeah, I have like 10 years plus experience. And so, yeah, I would like to, show my art. And they were like, no, we're not interested. And so that's why when we did For Self, I think the only one that really showed us love was 01 Gallery. They were over on Melrose and La Brea. And that was a real kind of lowbrow, but also they were kind of like the forefront of like the lowbrow art scene that ended up kind of evolving into what Juxtapose magazine is showing.
Yeah, who was running? Do you remember who was running that? 01?
Yeah, that was John Pachana. So I just ran into him like not too long ago at Chaz's celebratory show, and he was there. He was it was over at the what was that at? It was at the hotel downtown. I forgot the name of that hotel. Yeah, Chaz did a show there for his 50 year, and so John was there. He showed up there, and I hadn't seen him in years. So,
and that was just recently, right? Chaz's show,
exactly.
Sorry, I missed that. That must have been a very special night.
Yeah, it was, and I actually gave him a piece. I created a piece for him, like for the 50, because he's actually one of my mentors.
Yeah.
So he and I came into contact with him in the early 90s. At the in Highland Park when I actually came when I first met Man One, I met all the COI guys, and then we had what was called Earth Crew. So Helen Samuels, she was also another mentor and contributor. She contributed quite a lot to development as far as self-motivation, because I've seen that woman. I assisted her and watched her. She was a Supreme Court interpreter. And when we were organizing functions and things like that, she would come out of recess of court, like man the phones. We'd be there at a payphone. Like she'd be making all these calls and we'd be sitting there like waiting for her. And she'd do like run circles around us. And then we would all like, she stayed off of Topanga Canyon and we would all like, whenever we were doing something, we like a group of us would stay with her and then she'd sleep like maybe 4 hours and go do it again. Like she was amazing. And so I got a lot of my drive and a lot of my go get 'em from her, definitely. Yeah. And I'm very grateful for the lessons that I learned from her,
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, it's like, those are just gifts from the universe. Those kinds of people, right? They're gifts from the universe.
No doubt.
And it's like I think about kids that don't have those people in their life, and it's like You know,
Well, she was the first one that took me and a group of us out of the country, for the first time.
But okay, so I was going to get there eventually, but since you brought it up, because that was one of the things, like, how did you get to Germany? How did you get out of the country? Like take me down that path. Take us down that journey.
Well, to take you on that journey, let me tell you about the Earth Crew at first. Okay. Earth Crew was Helen Samuels, was Margot Jim, was Maria de la Luz, was Chas Bojarquez, was his ex-wife Blades, and Sharon Donnan. And basically, they were like, these grown-ups that were trying to do something with young people and trying to organize and work with young people, especially young people coming from troubled backgrounds.
Sure.
So they had this spot. They had a place it was called Art in the Park. It was in Highland Park. It was a rec center there in Highland Park, right off the freeway. And we used to meet there and, talk about different things and organize different functions and stuff. So as we did a bunch of different cool exchanges, we were the first ones working with the gangs in Pico Union. We did, there's a mural that we did there right on Pico and Union that's still up. It's a parking lot. It's one of the only, I'd say, 2 Earth Crew murals in LA that are still up. The other one's on 3rd Street, 3rd near Traction. But anyways, so we did that mural together. Then there was a group from Mexico City called CPJ. They're called Consejo Popular Juvenil, something like that. So basically, these were all the old ex-gang members from different districts or boroughs that basically came together, stopped the violence against each other, and started creating these youth centers all over the city. And primarily like around Mexico City, all the little small townships. And so they came to LA. They found out what we were doing. They came to LA. And then they said, hey, you guys should come down to Mexico City. And so Helen organized it and put together, got donations and whatnot from different people. And she took a large group of us down there. And so we went first in 91. We stayed there for, I would say almost a month, probably about a month.
Wow.
And then we went back. It was incredible. So when we went down there, there was no graffiti, none. And so we went there and we did murals all over that city.
Virgin territory.
Yeah. So we introduced graffiti to Mexico City.
Amazing.
And so the next year there was one part of the tour. We went to the pyramids. We went to the Pyramid of the Sun. So Teotihuacan. And we were at the top of the Sun Pyramid, and it was amazing because there was the natives that were there to do rituals, and the federales were not letting them. They turned them away. And we were sitting there, we're asking, wait, what's going on down there? And they said, well, it's illegal for them to actually do rituals, their native rituals at these places. And we were like, what? That's crazy. How is that possible? That doesn't make any sense. So anyways, we came back the next year, which was the anniversary of Columbus, actually, the conquest.
Yep.
And what they did was they went back, and this time they came with everyone and overran the area. So when we were there the following year, there was a huge celebration. So it was amazing to be at that spot, those 2 pivotal times. And so, that's one of the amazing memories that I have from, the Earth Crew and what we did and the accomplishments that we did. And to see, and it was funny, when I was visiting back in California from Germany after, when I was living in Germany, I went to visit my mother. She was living in Sacramento at the time. I stopped at a Mexican bakery, and they had graffiti magazines from Mexico City. And I was
look what you started.
And so, I picked one up and I was looking at it. I was like, what? And I was just tripping out because I had totally kind of forgot about what we had did.
Sure.
And just, I was on a Europe thing. And so I was like, whoa, this is amazing, just tripping out. And I mean, if you see what they're doing down there now, it's out of this world. So I'm going to
What
make
year
it back.
was that? What year was that when you went down and brought
91,
graffiti?
and then the second year was 92. So it was 91 and 92.
Right.
So, and then come back from that, and then I have an opportunity to go to, I meet these guys. I met this guy. Oh, I met a woman at first. I was over at, I was doing a painting over on Cahuenga. We're painting this whole building. And this woman, Swiss woman, came up and asked if she could take pictures of me. She was a photographer. And I was like, nah, I don't know about that. Because I normally did not let people take my picture.
Yeah.
I would let people take pictures of my art, but never me.
Yeah.
I kept it a mystery,
yeah.
Who my identity was. So I just said, I said, well, she's all, well, tell you what, if, I said, because my mother didn't have any pictures of me. So I was just thinking, okay, if you make some nice pictures of me this way, then I can give to my mom. Okay, no problem. We'll do it. And she was like, cool. That's beautiful. That's real cool. So she made a really cool photo shoot with me. Then she introduced me to one of the guys that she worked with. And they actually had a media company that was called White Noise. And they were a Swiss-based company, but in LA. So the guy, Peter, told me about this company that they're doing a commercial for, a Swiss company, like a beverage company. And he asked me if I knew some other people that could come together to do this commercial at their location. I was like, yeah, sure. I got some guys. I got my friend Lil Caesar and Wilbur from Air Force Crew. I got some guys some BMX guys. And, we did the commercial. And then they said, hey, this was really cool. They really enjoyed it. The company was really happy. He says, yeah, if they really like it, they're thinking about bringing you guys to Switzerland for a promo tour for this drink. And we were like, oh, he says, yeah, but you never know. So it probably won't happen. So don't take my word for it. Just we'll see. So I forgot about it. I ended up forgetting about it. Then I get a call from him one day. He's like, hey, you remember me? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, check this out. Well, they like it and they want to bring you guys out to Switzerland for 5 weeks, all expenses paid. They paying you a great salary. And I was like, this is awesome. So that year, 93, I ended up going to Switzerland and then doing this tour around Switzerland. It was amazing, just getting paid, great hotels, and just having a great time doing
rock star.
Yeah, rock star. And come back. And then when I come back, there's a group that's from Germany in LA, and I find out about them. They're in South Central, and this was right after, of course, the riots happened. So Maxine Waters had a place over on Manchester in Vermont, and this one building that they had, and they wanted to do a mural on the side in exchange with this group from Germany. So we were like, cool. They invited me, and Hex came, my homeboy Myth, he was there, and that was it. And then there was the writers from Germany. So we ended up kicking it with them and like touring all around LA, just having fun, hanging out, showing them LA and everything, just having a ball. And the crazy thing about it was we were doing all this really cool stuff and they were documenting it, but no one from everybody that was supposed to be from California, from the States, all flaked out. So all the people that were supposed to come at the press, they didn't show up. They all like flaked out.
Oh, wow. Wait, what was that about? They didn't take it seriously. They didn't believe it was going to happen.
I think so. Something like that. Or this, I think it's just the problem with California, especially Southern California in particular about art, is we have this conundrum where we have some of the most amazing artists produce some of the most amazing artists, but you almost never know that because you don't see it on the streets. You don't see, like, there's some of the most talented, amazing artists from all different types of mediums here. Sculptors, painters, just mixed media people, but you would never know that because you don't see their works prominent. Like you don't go into buildings and see their paintings and sculptures and stuff like that. You don't see them on the streets. anything. And so it's crazy. It's sad that we have that. And so that's part of the attitude. So they were like asking like, whoa, what's going on with this? And so even after we did the wall and it was a success, Maxine Waters and someone from the city was supposed to do a presentation because we were all getting awards.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to this restaurant and everything, and actually none of them show up. So we get some assistant that comes and just says, oh, we're so sorry. They didn't even send an assistant that would have been like, okay, well, she's not going to be here, but we're still going to make this presentation and, officially. No, they just came to the dinner table when we were sitting there waiting for them and just said, hey, guys, well, she's not coming. There's not going to be any ceremony. Here's a folder with all your awards in it. Pass them around. See ya.
Wow.
So, yeah, man. I mean, it's funny because I've talked to, I go to the LAR show a lot. And one particular year, just not last year, I'd say about, was it 2016, 2018. I was talking with, after the show, I was really talking with a lot of the big curators and gallery people from LA. And I just asked them, we were at this one booth, and I was just asking them, I said, hey guys, why is it that this is the only place and the only time when you can really see LA's finest? And they were like, they looked at me, and then, it was rhetorical, of course, the question. But I said, do you think maybe that Hollywood has something to do with that? And they all just smiled and looked at me, and we just said that knowing, nod to each other. And that's what I feel is part of the issue here is they're not going to promote and present artists in that light because they would upstand or outshine potentially the celebrity, phenomenon. Because they're, like I said, they have phenomenal artists here, and the most.
Well, and that sort of works on many levels, right? Like I talk to people sometimes, about LA, and and LA has such a bad rap outside of LA because Hollywood casts that long shadow. And I tell people all the time, man, no, LA is one of the most diverse, eclectic, culturally rich, interesting, beautiful places, cities in the country and the world. But, you got to come here. You got to work, you got to work at it a little bit. I mean, if you don't know somebody or whatever to take you where you got to go or whatever. But, Hollywood just casts that long shadow that people just think that's all LA is, but it's not.
But even Hollywood, the shadow that it's casting is not even really that awesome anymore.
Right.
And so that's the sad thing. It's like, look, okay, well, if you're going to do that, then live up to that expectation. Don't be so lackluster. And so, I don't know, it just seems cheap,
So for sure.
That's the thing. It's like it generates so much, but then it's like where you don't see it, And so, like when I lived in Berlin, it was an amazing city in so many ways. And that's why I spent so much time there.
How long were you there again? You were there a long time.
Yeah, about 20 years.
Right.
About 20 years. So the thing about it was it just had so much to offer in so many different levels. It's a multicultural city. There's so many different ethnic, just backgrounds there.
Yep.
There's such a rich culture. There's such a rich hunger for culture and expressive of that culture, of those different cultures. They put a lot of money behind it. The government sponsors. And see, that's the problem here. We don't have government, sanctioned and sponsored programs or, for that matter, art groups. So it's like, say, for instance, you don't have say a group of artists that are really everybody knows about them. They're doing big things and they're creating in events and stuff like that. It's just maybe one artist or a group here, and you really don't hear about it. You see some shows maybe at Mocha or LACMA or something like that, but you don't really see it around the city. Like when I was in Berlin, when there was something going on, you knew about it because they billboard plastered it all over the city. So you could not know. And they did it in such a creative way. So even the posters, people ended up collecting them, the big billboards off the streets. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, when you don't have a culture environment that is supportive of what you do, it creates a lot of problems and it creates a lot of division. So you have some artists here, like in our world, you have guys like Retna, or he's like him, or maybe Mac or Coffee or something like it. But more, I would say more so than ever, it would be Retna, because he's the only one. And I'm sure that creates a lot of jealousy, creates a lot of envy, when it's like, that's not what he got into this for. And he would like to see other people on that are his peers on that level, because then it's not like he feels like alone. And that's why I think sometimes is the way he does things. It's that way because he's a target in a sense. It works this way positively and also negatively. So I think the thing is we have to hold those people accountable a little bit more and bring the level of like events, the type of rewards that for artists, it needs to be up on a higher level. If we're supposed to be the richest state one of the richest states and places in the world with more millionaires or multimillionaires, shouldn't that be evident? Shouldn't the arts be high up there?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like I'm a public school guy from, the Midwest, and it's like, we had the time anyway, the tax base was pretty good. So, we had a good arts program, and what I mean by that is like, yeah, sure. We had good academics or whatever and good sports, but we had the visual arts, but we had music, we had theater, and I mean, like, that is so important to raise a citizenry that is empathetic and emotionally intelligent. And the arts are so crucial. And yet we've just defunded and cut. And, now arts is like, it's like non-existent.
Well, yeah, I mean, from a municipal standpoint, but why not the private sector?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Because the thing is, it's like, we don't need them. We don't need the government to sponsor us.
That's right.
We have enough, especially now with the .com situation going on. I mean, there's more money than ever here.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I think it's just something that it's not in their ear enough.
Right.
So if it was, and like, I mean, say for instance, when I lived in Dubai for a year, lived in UAE for a year, and one contest that they had a contest doing 3D art. They were doing 3D art murals. The first prize was $350,000.
No. Wow.
The second prize was 200-something thousand. The third prize was 100-something thousand.
Dude, that's just beautiful.
And it was like an open it was a selective invitation, but the cool thing if we would have knew about it, we could have totally got into that and been a part of that.
Yeah. And
probably I know if I would have won something. I would have won one of those prizes for sure. I would have. That's just motivation enough. But it's like in the same thing. It's like both of the Guinness World Records that I have are in UAE, and I'm like, why don't we have that here? All the monumental things that have been done with what we do, what's been created here, are abroad.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We have the biggest population, and like, why is it that we're not utilizing the numbers? And so that to me is, I mean, I think that's something that most artists, that's a hard thing for them to deal with, and why they love, Europe so much, because there's so much, they feel so welcomed.
Yeah.
And
well, I got a couple of buddies, back home from Chicago who are, they're jazz musicians, pianists, saxophone player, badass, wonderful, beautiful musicians, jazz cats. And here in the US, I mean, they struggle. They work their ass off to make ends meet. They go to Europe, they're rock stars.
Exactly. because they appreciate the art. And it's just like, the types of conversations that you have over there in the institutions. I mean, dude, it's like I'm sitting here and it's like, people ask me why I'm not doing this and why I'm not doing that. I'm telling them, like, because it's not appreciated and I'm not going to waste my time. When people come with something real that makes sense to, this may sound arrogant, but no, it's the knowledge of self. It's just
Yes.
that caters to my level respectfully. Then, hey, I'm not a person who's like uppity or anything like that. No, it's just you have to give respect to get respect. Just like we give it to other institutions and things like that have been in, like doing what they're doing for a long period of time. I'm almost at 40 years at this.
Yeah.
So when am I going to get my flowers? And the thing is, I said, I'm not waiting for them to give me my flower. I take my flowers daily.
Yeah.
And so the thing is just, I just do what I do, and I go to the places where I'm appreciated, and then I do all the shiny stuff because they appreciate it and they're behind it. When I'm here, I'm mainly functioning commercially. Sad to say, but that's what I do here. I try to enjoy it as best as I can, and I'm more into the personal interactions that I have with the clients that I work for.
Mm-hmm.
But fine art stuff, it's like most of the stuff I'm really not into it, like because of the motivation behind it is mostly monetary. And it's not that I'm saying that I don't want to be compensated for my works. I demand to be compensated for my works. But the thing is when you're just looking at it only from the standpoint of a profit and something that you're potentially going to flip, then there's not much of a conversation there. It just is, like you might as well buy a Ferrari,
Right.
Like, fuck it, buy a Ferrari, man. You don't need to buy my art. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a long story behind it. It's a rich culture. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just being, like, I think as a man or just even as a woman or anybody, you're either going to stand for yourself or you're going to fall for everything.
Well, you got to know what you're worth. And I mean, I'm not even talking about like dollars maybe, but I'm just saying like your own sense of self and integrity and
Mm-hmm.
know that you have a craft, you have a talent that has value. And,
Mm-hmm.
you got to respect yourself. You're not going to get respect if you don't even respect yourself. And it just feels like, I hate to say it, but it just feels like so many artists just don't know like what their worth is, or they're, and they get taken advantage of.
Well, it's true, but a lot of artists, why they got into art, I mean, like when I got into art, I had light, you know what I mean? I had light. So although the culture, and I call it super culture now, we started a subculture, now it turned into a culture, now we're a super culture, helped me to develop more of my light. But I came into this with a certain degree of knowledge of self. So this just enhanced it and cultivated it, and is still doing that. And so I think a lot of artists, when they came into the later generations, they came into it with not that much of a sense of self. They were looking for something. And self-expression is definitely great for development of self. But if you don't do the work on self, then you will never get there. You'll always be looking outside, looking from outside in. Yeah. And that's what I feel like a lot of artists or people that are doing the creativity and, creating things are feeling that way because of the way they've been taught, the way they've been brought up. And so some of them, it was beyond their control to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Because if you're only exposed to certain information, then you're only going to reflect that. But if you have some more information on board, then you maybe question some of the things or go into different directions to search, seek, and find and apply. I think the thing is when I say these things I don't just adjudicate to the art scene as far as it goes to just throw stones at it and hide my hand. I also look at myself, and, that's why I started creating shows, was to contribute, not just to just take from the scene. I felt I had to give back and giving other opportunities to other artists and to expose them to that whole platform and doing for self and creating a level of pride and self, reliance. So that's why we started creating these group shows. And so just creating that whole dynamic was so empowering and so liberating. And just seeing how like the artists came together, were vibing off of each other, pushing each other, and learning from one another was probably one of the best synergies. And that is what an art movement, should consist of. And like, it was the same thing when I went to Germany. We were doing the same thing. It was me and my partner, and we started a group, an agency, and we just started bringing all our homies in there and just started creating these events. And then I even reached back and brought people from the States over for a couple events, monumental events that we did with one of the foremost art academies in the world, And so it was kind of bitter, it was great having these accomplishments and everything, but it was sort of bittersweet because a lot of time I was doing it by myself, or was doing it not with the people or in the place of my home, my origin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you had to leave your own country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you mentioned that German crew that came to LA,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess they brought you to Berlin.
No.
Like, okay, so how did you end up in Berlin?
Okay, so going back to the story about like Switzerland, and I mean, after we came back, I hooked up with those guys. We did the whole thing, and then they left. They said, "Hey, you should come to Germany," and we were like, "Yeah, cool." But then we didn't go. So then the next year came, a different group came, but I didn't end up connecting with them. And then a year after that, one of the original guys from the original crew came with another writer to visit me in LA, just on their own dime. And they came and they stayed at my apartment, but I was never really there. Like I was working at a regular job, and plus I freelance. I work for the record companies at night. And so they were like, "Yay, man, it just seems like you just live to work." And I never really thought about it like that. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, man. I was like, damn, you're right. And they said, man, you should come to Germany. It's different. And it's a different life. And so I said, yeah, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I decided that day, I sold all my stuff. I'm going to sell my stuff and I'm going to bounce. But I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell nobody till like 2 weeks before I was about to leave. And then I just had like a little dinner party at this spot, and I invited some close homies there, and I dropped the announcement, and everybody was shook. They was like, "What?" Family included. They didn't know either, because I didn't want nobody to try to talk me out of it.
Right.
And I made the decision. I had my ticket, and so yeah, I bounced. I went over there, and only knew this one cat. I moved in with him and another dude and his wife. His guy ended up being Storm. His guy named Storm. His name's Niels Rubisky. He was like the best b-boy in the world at the time. And so, we just started. I just took like a week off, didn't do nothing, just chilled. And after that week, I was like, okay, let's hit it. And we just started hitting the streets and turning up, getting busy. And we started our company and just started building.
What you said a minute ago, I mean, that was an important thing. I mean, this idea of living to work versus working to live. And it's like, they saw that, they call it, because it's such an American thing, right? It's like,
right.
It's like our culture is just built like that. You don't have worth if you're not a workaholic, and
It didn't used to be that way though. It didn't used to be that way.
Yeah.
Like in the 60s, the 50s, that just came, even the 70s. It just came into like the later part of the 80s, and then 90s, it was cracking. It was like,
right.
When inflation happened, that shit just, everybody had to get out the pool.
Well, and I mean, it says a lot about you, just that you saw that, you know what I mean? When they said that, it hit you in the heart, it hit you in the gut, it hit you in the mind. You were like, I'm out, like, I gotta go.
Yeah. And that's what it was, dude. Like I went there, I was making way more money than I ever did, worked way less hours.
Yeah.
And I was able to come here. I was taking vacations. I would stay, like I developed my whole thing about the way I take vacations. When I take a vacation, it's a month minimum.
Yep.
You know, like when I go to visit a country, it's a month minimum. I don't go nowhere and stay for like 2 weeks or a week. I don't do that. I go there, stay a month, you know?
Yep. Yep.
And so just that attitude has really afforded me to see and do a lot of amazing things, man, and just experience my life. It's incredible. And I try to share that with more people and get them to give themselves a chance to experience that. Because so many people, they just, they think this is the end all be all. And I'm like, there's something else. Like, you got to get out and see the world. There's amazing things. You can always come back here, and this place will be right here, just like it was.
I was talking to a musician. Actually, he's an Australian dude, but has lived in LA for a while. And we were just talking about the importance of travel, and he was saying, like, yeah, man. He's like, if I was president, he goes, I'd give you tax deductions based on every stamp in your passport. Yeah. And I thought that was like brilliant, right? Because I mean, at the end of the day, if more Americans travel, and I remember like hearing a while back, and this was a long time ago, like 1 out of 3 Americans have a passport, and it's probably worse than that now, but like 1 out of 3. And, the travel builds empathy and builds, emotional intelligence. And, and if more Americans were traveling, man, like it would just like resolve a lot of stuff, it seems. And like, wouldn't that be cool? You could get a tax benefit for traveling, like, incentivize these people.
I mean, I'm already on my 10th or 11th passport.
Yeah. Your 10th or 11th.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. That's
so it's like,
that's impressive, bro. 10th or 11th passport. Think about that, people.
And it's just,
do you even have a passport, people? Toons is on his 10th or 11th.
You feel me? I got volumes. But no, it was it's dope. And I've been to some crazy spots too, man. I've been to places where it was, war torn. I mean, even living in Berlin, man, like where I was staying at, like I had rented this whole floor on this factory. It was like an old men's clothing factory. It was crazy. Like in my bedroom, in the back, it was like a second courtyard. There was like bullet holes all up in the wall, and inside my bedroom in the roof. I'm like, I used to just sit in my bed and be, it painted over them, but I'd be looking at that. I was like, damn, somebody probably came up short in here. You know what I mean? So, and it was just like walking those old ass streets, cobblestone streets, man. Like, you feel the history, you know what I mean? And it's a trip because it made me think about here a lot more, made me think about Cali and the trippy thing about the history here, because we have a place that they keep constantly repaving, resurfacing, redoing everything. And it's like, if really the history here, it's ancient. It's ancient. And so it just made me think a lot more. And I started, every time I was coming back, I was going to all these different spots and I was like doing research. Like I was at the Brand Library, looking at that, looking at all the archive pictures from when LA was first built and the people that were positioning themselves, the families like the Huntingtons, the Brands, the Chandlers, all these different folks that was basically taking their little power positions and what they did with it. And so it's basically legacy, understanding legacy. And I think that's where I'm working with artists to help them understand that. So like, this is a really amazing artist. His name is Felix Gephardt. He's from Germany. He just sent me these 2 books right here that are of his works. And I'm working on something right now with him. It's as incredible. These 2, I mean, you see how thick they are.
Yeah,
They're not cheap books. No. And so I'm working on my book that's actually probably almost probably about a little bit thicker than this one right here.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is it's so important for, artists to understand and create these different things for themselves to basically create their own history. And see, I don't mean to talk really bad about these guys, but I have to mention it. It's the Getty Museum, when they did that project with the artist about the Peace Book.
Right.
And I opted not to participate in that. And brought it to my attention. He brought it to project. He was like, "Hey, Toons, we're doing this. Do you want to get down with this?" And I said, "Well, let me talk to the guy I'd like to speak to the guy who's organizing it."
Mm-hmm.
And so he put me through to the guy. I talked with him and I asked him, I said, "So yeah, just tell me, I'd like to know more about this project. What's going on?" Just out of curiosity, And I was like, "Wow, Getty is interested in this? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let's see what they're talking about." So I talked with him, and basically he was like, "Well, we basically want to have this book for us, for our archive." And I'm like, "Really? Okay. So you're asking us as artists to contribute to this book, and this is going to be a historical thing. Are you compensating us for this book? How will we be compensated for this book?" And he's like, "Oh, no, we're not. This is strictly pro bono." And I'm like, "Can't do that, bro."
Yeah. Right.
And he was like, "Oh, what do you mean? Why not? This is the Getty and da 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 da." And I'm like, "I understand that, sir, but there's an issue here, because we as a collective do not have our own collection of this works for ourselves. So how are we going to give you this honor before we honor ourselves? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense as far as historical, fact is going, our historical record, or legitimacy as a movement." And I think
you blew his mind, man. He didn't see that coming.
No, he didn't expect that. And so I talked to creating them. I said, "Dude, don't do this." I'm like, "It may sound great and everything, but it's not a good thing. This is not a good thing." And I said, they told me the stipulation about it, that you can only see it this way and you guys don't get a copy of it. I'm like, they're not even going to give you a copy for your own selves? I'm like, hell no. Right. I'm not doing this. And so, a few
more
artists,
exploitation,
right. And some artists, and the Getty has a reputation for that, unfortunately. The Getty Archive in particular. Yeah. They've exploited a lot of artists to get their works. So I had to say no. And so these guys don't understand, because a few guys, they sprinkled a few little crumbs on some artists. Right. They got some things out of it, but not really as they should have. And I told them, I said, "Look, guys, do you know how much money this is worth? Do you know that they will..."
Priceless.
Exactly. And I'm saying that, that the person who creates these works will have buildings named after them. They'll get a whole science wing or university.
Yeah.
Because they're discovering a movement. It's the same shit over and over, and they don't understand that. And they were just like thinking I was hating on him.
Talk about like cultural appropriation.
Right. And it's just basically it's Stockholm syndrome in a way.
Right.
So
you fall in love with your captor.
Right. And I'm just like, come on, guys. It's like, that's why you got into this. They could see if you were like a mainstream guy or whatever, but you were a rebel.
Right.
This goes against all my rebel and street tendencies.
Yeah.
So that's how I said, no, I got to keep it 100. I got to keep it 100. I got to stay away. So.
It's interesting, right? Because somebody once told me, like, they were talking about being an artist, and they had gone to art school or whatever, and I said, "Well, what did art school teach you?" And this particular artist said, "Well, art school taught me how to see." And I think like artists, like that's whether you went to art school or not. One of the things that I love about artists is that they see shit. Like they see things that I can't see. They see and it's interesting because there's so much that like this. I mean, you saw what was happening, and you saw it differently than other people were seeing it. But,
But how did I know
we're
that?
blinded sometimes,
Yeah, the only reason why I saw it was because I studied history, and because I look at different scenarios, and I ask why and ask questions. So if you look at art movements, if you look at, say, Renaissance, and you go to the Louvre and you see these masterworks that they have in the Louvre that are maybe 150 full portraits. It's a mass painting that's probably it's the biggest canvas I ever saw painted. Like,
wow.
And this is from the Renaissance, and it's in oil, and so it's masterful. Right. And I heard that the painter only did 5 of them over his whole lifetime. But to sit in a room and see that is amazing. And so when you experience different things, you learn, your eye is opened, and your vision is focused. So it's not about school, it exposes you to a lot of things because you're exposed to instructors and stuff like that show you. But the same thing is it's just having conversations. A lot of the knowledge that I got was from having conversations with people like yourself and others. And I just listen because I respect the person that is taking the time to say something to me. Because I know you don't have to take the time to inform me about something. So if you're going to take the time to say something to me, I'm going to listen. And I have enough intelligence to be able to differentiate what I feel is valuable or not valuable. And even when I hear something and it sounds great, maybe great information, but I still have the choice at the end of the day whether to apply it. And that's what I think a lot of people are not understanding as far as what information goes. Because at the end of the day, you can say, you're influenced by things, but it's only the things that you actually take and use and utilize. Because you don't always do that with everything. You might see something, oh, that was awesome, oh my God, but then you never apply it. So what's that? You know what I mean? And so it's just, I think sometimes people put too much on certain situations, and just, if you're just more observant to the things that are around you, you'd be surprised what you will learn that is not in a scholastic environment or setting.
Yeah, I call it situational awareness.
There you go. Or just Kung Fu.
There you go.
So it's been an amazing journey, and I mean it's still unfolding, and it's awesome. I think when I realized and understood and accepted and took on the role of being a teacher and student simultaneously, that's when I think life became much more. I started going towards being graceful. And so the things that I'm learning, and I'm also learning from my mistakes, and even how I'm trying to learn from them is by engaging them. So when something goes wrong, it's just talking with people about it and giving them the platform to be able to talk about maybe if I've wronged them, and say, but just giving them a respectful environment to be able to deal with the situation. I think that's a great way to learn and to grow as an artist, or as just even as a person. And so, like, I've been doing collaborations. Even I'm always looking to collaborate with different artists in different mediums, because I learned so much about myself through those things, and also through learning about other people. And so it's some of the things I post and a lot of things I don't post. You know what I mean? There's a lot of art that people have not seen from me, and they don't know that I did it because there wasn't a lot of fanfare behind it. I just did it and I kept moving. And then
one of the words that when I think about you and got to know you, so much even more tonight. I mean, this is, let's be clear. Like, this is the most you and I have rapped, one-on-one. The word that comes to mind when I think about what I'm hearing and what in you and what I know about you and your work and just how you think, what have you, one of the words that comes to mind is discipline. You seem to me to have incredible level of discipline. Talk about that for a minute.
Well, I think thank you. I think the thing is when I was growing up and I'm seeing different things and I learned from a lot of mistakes that I saw other people making. And so when I came across the statement of, if you have high expectations, you must have patience. And by embracing that, it helped me to formulate this discipline. So when you take the time to invest in yourself and to learn something or to go towards something or to create something, it's not about the goal, it's about the journey for me. The goal is just part of the glory, but the journey is everything. So that is like, it's an adventure. And so that for me is always critical and is key. So it's like going to another country. Like I tell people, when I go to the airport, I get excited. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's just all those different things that are going. You see people coming and going, and, it's an exciting place for me. And so I just get into a Zen mode when I'm ready to move and travel. And so it just going, when I went to Abu Dhabi to do this crazy wall that we did, and 2019. It was incredible because it was a crazy time here, being back here. And then that came up and I left, and it was a struggle when I was there because there was something, I was just really experiencing something difficult. And then I said something to someone about it. And then it was like, I said it from the soul. And then the next day, this woman came by the wall and just was almost in tears and stopped and just was saying, just giving so much praise and appreciation, and that she was so grateful that I was there, and because I was there by myself at the wall painting, and she was just moved by this painting. And it's like, those are the moments that make you feel like it's outer body. You know what I mean? I've had so many of those moments because it's like when you get to that level, like you said, this discipline, and when you're giving so much of yourself, it's those human moments that come and just, man, they're amazing. I remember children coming up to me and just being in Mexico, like that time in Mexico City, we were painting in this one neighborhood. It was like one of the worst neighborhoods in Mexico City. Every time I mention it, people are like, "Oh shit, you were there?" And I'm like, "Yeah," So painting there, and then like I'm sitting there painting at the wall, and I had my headphones on and listening to music. And I took a break, and I turned around, and the street was filled with kids just watching while we were painting. And we took a break. We were like autographing shirts. So it was like it was like a Michael Jackson moment, dude. It was crazy, but it was so amazing because these children were so into it. And so like, it wasn't just children only, but it was an amazing moment. And that's what I'm saying. Like, this is where all that investment pays off, and just being invited to different places and teaching. The group that I paint with in the UAE, they're amazing. They're amazing. They're mostly women artists, and it's just, we have so much fun, and it's so easy. There's no egos, nobody's tripping. They're just so thankful, and we just have so much fun, and they're so matter of fact. And it's just, like I said, it's just this thing that you wish that you could have here. And
So
it's just sad.
I got to ask a question. So,
Mhm.
I mean, is it hard being here now for you?
It is. It is at times. It is. And so that's part of, what I go through. And it's like when I meet people and I try to organize things not only so they can experience something great, but so I can also experience something great. And I started creating events because no one was creating the types of events and things that I wanted to go to. So I said, well, shit, I need to do it then. And that's what me and the people that I work with started doing. And so it's like when I met you and you were telling me about the stuff and I was like, man, that's awesome. Like, I'm down to help. Let's do this. That's for real. Cause I know a lot of people, they just say shit and they say like, yeah, just to be saying stuff. I'm like, nah, man, let's get it cracking. Let's do this, because these events, this is a thing that inspired me. Like the photo show back in '88 in LA, that was monumental, man. When Frame put that together, Frame and Carmelo Alvarez, was also another one of my godfathers. I mean, amazing. Carmelo Alvarez is one of the unsung heroes of LA and LA hip hop. He was the guy who did the Radiotron, and did these amazing shows. And so it's just, those are important. And it's important that we don't forget these guys and that we don't include them. Because I know when next show I'm coming up with, he's going to be included some way, whether it's like he gets an award for his like a lifetime achievement award. I mean, all those things are important. They're so important, and I said we can create them ourselves. We don't have to go somewhere or get a Grammy or something like, no, we create a award way better than a Grammy. Come on. So that's all I'm saying, bro. It's just, we have to start pushing more and not asking. You have to take what you want here. And that's kind of where, I'm at now. So it's like, I'm working on something right now and I just got to get it.
Well, tell me about your book.
Well, my book is something that I've been putting together over the years now. And it's basically, it's not just like a nice, pretty picture book. It's a study book. I wanted to create a book because most of the graffiti books that we have are just pictures. People just, oh, wow, you get to see that. No, I wanted to create that effect, but I also wanted to have the effect of people, because people are inspired and I want them to look at it and say, well, I can use this book to look at it and get a thrill, but I can also use this and I can build. So I'm creating it almost like a math book. So it'll basically not just tell my story, it'll tell like my process. So you see, just how I came up with what I came up with based on what the origins of things are. Yeah.
Wow, what a labor of love, brother. I mean,
yeah,
shit.
Man. I mean, it's if you're gonna call yourself a master, and I was not calling, people were calling me a master, this and that. So at first I was kind of like, and then I just said, I embraced it. And I said, okay, well, in order to call yourself a real master or a PhD, you have to create a written body of work.
Yeah.
And we have with our piece books and sketchbooks, but I have to publish it, and put it on the public record, so to be officially lawful in the archive. So
well, yeah, man. And books are no joke. I mean, especially books like this. I mean, so I mean, I know you've got months, if not years into this thing already. So like when do you think you'll actually be able to send it to the printing press?
When it's done. That's simple, man.
Good answer,
That's
brother.
simple.
Good answer. That's
When
it.
It's done.
That's it.
That's
it.
And so I have to say that in the words of my big brother Scheme from TMT crew,
Yeah.
He said that in Star Wars. They said, when you gonna stop doing it? When I'm done. Hey,
This is,
That said it all.
this is that wisdom, right? That we're talking about, the discipline, the situational awareness, right? I mean, that's that answer, just how you answered that. I mean, that speaks to that kind of discipline that we're talking about. And, it's like, I don't know, man. I mean,
We learned
so
that from
important.
the streets.
Yeah. Right.
That's the thing. It's like, look, I come from a long line of OGs. And so in order for me to be respectful to those sources and those entities, I want to reflect that. And so that they feel proud to say that, yeah, that's my protege. You know what I mean? And so we take that very serious, and my generation especially, we take that very serious. And so that's why I study and I dedicated myself to this. I said I will go to the ends of the earth to learn from those who I want to learn from, to be the best person that I could be in this. And that's what I set out to do. And that's what I'm still doing. So I go to the ends of the earth to learn from those who I want to learn from. And it's an amazing journey. It's hard sometimes, it's difficult, but it's also very, very rewarding.
Always a student, always a teacher. I think you said that earlier.
Exactly. I'm sticking to the script. Having created a position for myself and also one of my ex-crew members, we did that back in the 80s. We took it upon ourselves to go into the school system when the school system was eliminating art programs, and we started teaching what we knew. And we created a curriculum. And so that's the other thing. That's part of what my master thesis is part of what I'm creating, is putting my curriculum in written form. So that's the legacy, So,
man, that's incredible. I mean, yeah, you're writing the textbook.
Yeah. So that has to happen, I mean, that is happening. So, and we're going to keep creating that. Once I get mine created, then I'm going to assist others in creating theirs.
Right.
Because that will be the volumes of works that will be for future generations.
Oh, I love that idea that you're creating a set of volumes, right? Like, just like that's beautiful, man.
We have to, because this is a phenomenon. And it's just, it would be a tragedy. I mean, I look at and see, this is what I learned from Jim Prigoff and from also another guy in Germany. And he just said, do you know that you guys are creating history right now? And when he said that to me, it hit me. And I was like, I cannot play with this. This is serious, And so, and Jim said the same thing to me. He told me the importance of writing a book back in the day, because I had asked him, a lot of writers were asking him like, oh, he made all this money from spray can art and this and that, and he's rich and all that off of this book. Because every time you go to the bookstore, they have that book for about 5 minutes and then it's gone, whether it's stolen or bought.
Right.
So they can't keep it on the shelf. Yeah. So the thing is, he told me this. He said, look, you got to understand something. For a white guy like me to create a book like this, use it to your advantage. He said, use it. That's how you get the pay back from this. He said, whenever you want to go in and get a job, and it's some white guy who's maybe looking at you crazy because you're a brown guy, show him this book and tell him this. And then it will open doors. And when he said that to me, it made perfect sense. And I've been doing it ever since. And so I tell other writers when they say, oh, these guys just, I'm like, yeah, they did. But you know what? You didn't do it. How come you didn't do it? How come you didn't take it upon yourself to create a book? How come you don't organize your drawings and make study materials? You can do that, especially now. You have no excuse, but you're just lazy. All the self-publishing apps that are out, all of the platforms that you can put your stuff up and create your own video channels and all that stuff. I mean, shit, if they had this when I was doing, oh my God, we'd have lost our minds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. It's just organizing yourself. And even for me, like I have videos out of some of the different stuff that I do. I have some stuff that is on style writing, but the majority of them are like my other projects, like, the bike customizing thing and
Yep.
those types of things. They're like short films. And I organized myself, got with professionals, and we created these bodies of work. So when people say, oh, well, what have you done? We don't see you up on the streets and this and that. And I'm like, well, I did this. I have this. And here's a few things I did. And then it was just like, oh. And I'm like, is that how you want to start the conversation? Or we can start again. Let's start this a little bit different. And let's have a real nice conversation, because I have a lot to share, and I'm sure you probably have a lot to share. So that's all I'm saying. I think if we begin to think a little bit more and not just dive a little bit deeper into the people that are around you, you'd be surprised what you find out. You'd be real surprised about what you find out, But just give them the respect and the time to be able to speak a little bit about and engage in their intelligence. And you'd be surprised what you find. It's all right there. It's not, you don't have to go so far out of your circle, People do things for a lot of different reasons, but if you never take the time to ask them what was going through their mind, what did you feel, then you'll never know. You'll just take it for face value and just think, oh, it's just a letter. It's just got some weird bands and colors and things and that like that. There's not much to it, or I don't understand it, so it doesn't really mean much. And that's what's happened to style writing. And that's the crazy thing. They went past it. They went on to character form and this and that, and they validated that more than just the origin. They didn't even understand tagging. And I'm like, oh, well, I hear guys that are artists now saying, oh, I started off doing graffiti, use graffiti as a stepping stone to get to this. And I'm like, really? I'm like, I think graffiti was too hard for you, so you took the easy way out.
Wow, I've never heard that, graffiti as a stepping stone.
Oh,
Jesus.
I've heard it more than enough times, and I'm like, oh boy. So
I don't even think the word toy is appropriate. Like I think a person that says that even is below a toy somehow. Like
it is. It is. And it's crazy because people don't use that term because everybody's all butthurt and sensitive now. And it's like, people were savage when we were coming up. You did not go to yards and attempt to paint. You would get beat up.
Yeah, right. It's a contact sport, man.
I mean, it wasn't just a full contact sport. It was style. You had to have your shit together.
Yeah.
In all forms, whether it be MCing, whether it be breakdancing, whether it be popping or DJing, all those things. And now just anybody can get up, oh yeah, I'm a DJ, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. And and it's like, no, bro. And it's just like, but then the older generation, the problem with them is like, they're not producing new works. And I tell them, I'm like, you're going to talk shit about these young cats. I'm like, you know what? It's like, you can't keep putting out this whack music. I mean, that may have been cool back then, but it's not cool now. It's like, if you're going to make, say, music with something, a message, it better be funky, because you're making music, not just reading some poetry or something. You're making music. It's supposed to be melodic. So, but I shoot a lot of guys. They talk about and I'm like, yeah, if you don't like it, then do something.
But it's easier to complain and bitch. It's easier to hate.
Yeah, it is. And I'd say, man, stop that shit. This is a part of our family. I may not necessarily like everything that they do, but I can enjoy some of it, and I can be happy that they're doing something, and if you do something dope and inspire them, that's it. Because as soon as somebody does something dope and it says something, people really get behind it. And if you keep doing it, it becomes a trend, or it becomes a movement. But
Yeah.
see, that's where people, like I said, they get lazy and they get complacent, and then they want to just take the easy route out and talk shit. Like you said, this is a full contact sport, and you got to stay, like you either look at it like this: either are you going to be a kung fu fighter, or are you going to be a kung fu master?
Right.
I said, I'll take being a master. I want to create kung fu masters, and that's what I've been doing. So I have many students, and I'm proud of them. And it's just, I want to keep being proud of them, and I want to keep them being proud of me. So I just keep creating. I keep producing. Take a break, go underground for a while, come up to the surface, drop a few bombs, and then disappear. Keep it mysterious. Keep them guessing. To me, that's B-boy style. That's B-boy flavor. And I've been sprinkled. Seasoned well. You know what I mean?
That's the magic, man. That's the magic,
deep. And that's what it is, man. Being cool and having fun and inspiring others. That's what it got me into it. When I saw them dudes doing it and being cool as can be, I was like, I like that. That's what I want to do.
And boy, you're doing it, man. Toons One, you have inspired me tonight, brother.
Thank you. And man, like I said, this is everything in its time. And so, for me, again, this is a great honor. It's a great pleasure. And I'm very, very happy that you're doing this. This is super important, man. And don't never, ever think that it is just, it's just for nothing, because this anytime you get the chance and you're interviewing people and you're talking to people who are out doing these things, you're writing into history. You're writing a page in history. It's just how you perceive it, how you decide to put it out there, and the value that you put on it. That's what's important. That's what gives anything an intrinsic value,
Thank you, brother. No, that means a lot. And I feel you, and I agree. I mean, to me, this is important work. It's like, again, I just go back to myself at 16 growing up. It's like there's other kids out there. How are they going to get access to this culture? How are they going to get access to these masters? How are they going to get access to these learnings? And this is one way we're doing it, with the podcast. Yeah. And, I'm just so honored that you took time. I know it's late. You worked all day, and here you are just spending your valuable time with us. And I'm just so grateful. And I hope you'll come back. You'll come back and do this again. Okay.
For sure. Yes.
Now, before we, wrap up for tonight, what do you want people to know? What do they need to know? How are we signing off here?
Well, definitely, I'm still around. I'm definitely open for collaborations. I'm taking it very serious. So please, if you're interested and you want to do something, reach out. You can reach out to me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at Toons One, the number 44. So it's TOONS, ONE, and then the number 44. You can reach me there. You can see my works. I post, here and there. And so, and you can reach out and conversate with me. I think the thing is people keep reaching. If you don't like what you see, look to yourself, look within yourself, and pull out what you want to see. First, figure out what it is that you want to see, and determine that is the outcome that you want it to be. That's so important, that you realize yourself, because it's within yourself that you're going to find all the answers that you're looking for. Infinite. And it's just beginning to trust yourself. And that way you begin to learn yourself, and then you begin to learn others. And so it's been an awesome pleasure, and the journey still continues. And so, thank you to all those, who you are, that you touch my life, you inspire me. I don't always get to see you, don't always get to talk to you, but you are always there in my heart and my mind and my soul. And I just pray that you guys are keeping yourselves together and reinventing yourself and believing in yourself and trusting yourself.
That's beautiful, brother. Toons One. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Scott.
Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. Please be sure to like this episode, write a review, and share with your friends on social. And if you haven't already done so, please press the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Not Real Art World.